welcome back. It's Turns Talks time. Episode 2. We're on to NFC playoffs just like I said we would be. Uh, Once again, going to break down the matchups for this upcoming weekend, and then we're going to talk about our favorites and our potential upset pick to make it all the way through. So let's start out with this. We got our 7 teams here going into the final week. We really only didn't know one position, and it was between the Niners and the Saints. Everyone else was out or clinched by that point. And the Niners came back, won a really fun game. That game, along with the Chargers Raiders game, were the two funnest games I watched while I was watching football on Sunday. I could not believe those games. I love how incredible the last weekend actually was. And maybe it was because of the extra week. We'll find out. We'll see if this happens again next year. But let's move on to the matchups for the NFC here. So, first off, we got ourselves the Tampa team versus the Eagles. First matchup. Um, what do I gotta say about these two teams? Well, first off, we know who Tampa is. Tampa Bay has Tom Brady. They've got Ronald Jones. Leonard Fournette's been out with an injury. I'm not quite sure what his status is. I don't think he's playing in this first game. He's been on IR for a while. And then you got Keyshawn Vaughn as the backup. I know Giovanni Bernard got hurt really late in the year too, and his was a really bad injury if I remember. And then we have Mike Evans. We have no Chris Godwin because poor guy tore his ACL. Uh, really was having a huge year for Tampa. And then no Antonio Brown. Obviously, everyone knows about all the shenanigans that have happened there. I'm not going to go into detail with all of that. Um, they're still a very good team. They're dealing with lots of injuries, though, and that makes them susceptible. They still got Rob Gronkowski. They still got a great offensive line, and their defense overall, they're pretty good. Um, Last year in the playoffs, they kind of went off with this more different defense look. Like they all of a sudden looked like a really good defense, and they had this incredible run. You can almost say like a miracle run with how well their defense played. So we'll see kind of if the defense can do that again. It's a lot of the same personnel out there. Devin White, I know, has been on IR, so I'm not quite sure what his status is for the game. It it could be rough for them, but they are playing the Eagles, probably deservedly so, the 7th seed in the NFC. I I will admit full-heartedly, I did not expect the Eagles to be even close to the playoffs. I expect them to be a bottom 5 team at worst and a bottom 10 team at best. I am surprised. I'm happily surprised, I guess. I'm really wasn't expecting Hurts to look as good as he has towards the end of the year. He's been inconsistent still, um, but that team's doing pretty well. So, like I mentioned, they got Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Running back, they have Miles Sanders. I'm not quite sure what his status is with his injury. So if not him, then you got Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, Jordan Howard. Um, and then at wide receiver, you got Devontae Smith, who has looked like the second best wide receiver at times out of this last draft, and at times has looked like maybe he went a little too early. It's it's one of those where he's looked good though. I think they did really well, unlike the past year when they picked up Rager. Um, they have Dallas Goddard, who looks like he is potentially a top 5 tight end after the end of this year. We'll see. You know, he'll be a big part of whether or not they can get out of this game. And then their defense has looked stellar, especially against the wide receivers. One of the best teams in the league against wide receivers. Their D backs are insane. Darius Slay coming over from the Lions last year looks excellent this year. He is back in all-star form, and I think it'll be smart of them to put him on Evans the entire game if they can. Um, this game though, even with Tampa Bay with all the injuries, I just can't imagine the experience of Tampa Bay is gonna let them lose this game. The Eagles are already in a great spot. They made the playoffs. They have 3 first-round picks next year, so they can either use those picks or use them as capital to get someone even more incredible for that offense. I I don't see though where you can take down Tom Brady in the first round. Washington almost did last year, so maybe there's always that world. But give me Tampa. Give me Tampa for sure. Really nice circle there for sure. Second game for the NFC. So we got the Niners and Dallas. I actually find this to be the most exciting game of the week, and it's because it's two teams that have both rose to the occasion multiple times this year. Um, I will say Dallas's numbers against teams with winning records isn't as good, but they still look like they're a very good team that are up for the challenge. Well, let's talk about them here first. So Dak Prescott, getting injured in the middle of the season, it really looked like it took his confidence away. Took a lot of time here to make it look like he's in better spot. I'm not gonna really take much for granted with the last week game. Sure, he put up 5 touchdowns, but the Eagles weren't really putting that much effort into that game. I mean, they didn't start Hurts. It wasn't a game that the Eagles were looking to win. Um, Dallas still has Zeke, and then they also have Tony Pollard. He's been kind of hampered with a foot injury himself towards the end of the year. Here, Zeke had his knee injury, so they both have had their issues, but Zeke looks like he's healthy now, which is very good for them. And hopefully for their sake, Pollard's also going to be healthy enough for the playoffs. And then wide receiver wise, you got CeeDee Lamb, you have Amari Cooper, a really good 1-2 punch there. Unfortunately for that, Michael Gallup getting hurt really puts a downer on it. He's going into the offseason with an ACL injury just like Godwin is. But Cedric Wilson's kind of filled that spot decently here and there, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's putting up good stats in this game too. And then a tight end that got Dalton Schultz. He's looked like a good enough tight end. He's been kind of hit or miss at times though too. Their offense line is incredibly good, and their defense, led by Micah Parsons, he has been easily the defensive player of the year as a rookie. I can't imagine someone that's put as much time into the game like looking like this. Like he looks incredible. I don't think there's another name out there that can tackle him like that. Um, Outside of that, you got Trayvon Diggs, 10 picks on the year. He's more of your ball hawk guy. He'll try to jump the ball before he's gonna make the insane, you know, jumping stop type of situation. He's trying to get the pick before he gets to the defense, and sometimes that can hurt him. He's a little, I love to say it, hit or miss, but he definitely is at corner. But if he can get a pick in this game, just another one of those big moments that he can bring. Moving on to San Fran, led by Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback. They have brought Trey Lance in before as like a running package, and Garoppolo's had his injuries throughout the year, which is something that's just hampered him in his entire career. Um, but he has looked pretty decent. He hasn't looked terrible at times. He looks pretty calm under the pressure, so that's got to be a good feeling if you're a Niners fan. Elijah Mitchell, the best running back, in my opinion, in the draft, and how he, at least skill wise, has shown this year. He probably has been put in a better position than some of those rookie running backs, though. and he has made the best out of it. He only played in 11, 12 games, something like that, and he was still like top 10 running. Very good running back. And then at wide receiver, I mean, yeah, we're pretty much talking about running backs here too. Deebo Samuel, the dual triple threat. He can run, he can catch, he can throw. What can't the guy do? He even returns their kicks. I just like the dude's a one man army. I've really enjoyed watching Debo this year. He's been the most fun player to watch on the field. Outside of him, you got Brandon Ayuk. You have Jawan Jennings, who had a really good game against the Rams. Hopefully, he can keep that up in the playoffs so they can have a triple threat there at wide receiver. And then, of course, you have George Kittle. What else can you say about that guy? He is insane. He's had his injuries too, but he looks fresh. He still looks like a demon. Someone I don't want to play against. Um, I will say that San Fran probably their defense has been a little shaky at times, so we'll see how they can match up against Dallas's offense. Um, but San Fran's offense can usually hang with whoever they're against. So this should be a really good game. Might be the highest scoring game of the week. Um, it's really hard to call, but I am going to go with San Fran in this game. I do think this is my big upset pick of the week. I think that they can really just run the ball down Dallas's throat. It's kind of what the Cardinals did a couple weeks ago against Dallas. That was really successful. Um, we'll see how Dallas responds to that. And then finally, we got Rams Cardinals final week, or final game of the week. And this is again a straw match, just like the Patriots Bills game is. However, this one's a little bit different to me. I think the first game that these guys played, the Cardinals were kind of in this we're like not gonna lose mode, and then they lost for the first time, and now they're in like a free fall from the heavens. They haven't looked amazing at the end of the year. It looks like they're kind of a tale of two teams at times, beating Dallas, but then losing to some other teams. I mean, losing to Seattle last week. Obviously, the Cardinals were already in, but they would have wanted to win that game so that they could be at home this week instead of playing in LA. But they're still a good team. We'll see what side of that team though that we get. But let's start with the Rams here. So obviously over the offseason, when picked up Matthew Stafford, one of the most critically underrated quarterbacks. He has looked inconsistent. That's easy enough to say. Um, he's thrown a lot of picks this year, unfortunately. He's cost them a lot of games because of it. And I think part of that maybe he's used to having to run the show and be the guy that has to do everything. But now you got Sony Michel, who has really stepped up towards the end of the year. Got Cam Akers, who incredibly has come back as quickly as he is from a torn Achilles. Usually running backs don't come back very well with torn Achilles, though, so we'll see how that goes. Daryl Henderson's still there as well at running back, so they got a lot of good running backs that they can just hand off to at any point. And then you got Cooper Kupp, absolutely incredible. What he has done this year is insane. And obviously, it wasn't even like record breaking or anything. He just took care of his team. When he had the ball in his hands, he was the one that was going to make plays. So I truly think that he was the best player this year overall in terms of overseeing expectations and just simply skill level. Behind him, you got OBJ and Van Jefferson. OBJ joining the team halfway through the year. He's really started to come on towards the end, getting a lot more touchdowns. He does look very good. Definitely looks like it was more of the case of Baker not throwing the ball to him, or maybe just the Browns scheme just not working with him. Who knows? Van Jefferson's been a great deep threat. He's shown it from week one that he can outrun everyone. And then Tyler Higbee looks like a great red zone threat still at tight end. Their offensive line is pretty shaky overall, actually. Uh, One thing I've really noticed, especially towards the end of the year, is Stafford's been under a lot of pressure. The Rams have really struggled against the pass rush, and that's going to be their downfall if they can't fix that. Because we saw in the Super Bowl last year with Mahomes, if you can't block for your quarterback, doesn't matter who your quarterback is, they're going to fail. It's as simple as that. Rams defense, they have continued to buff with superstars on that team. You got Von Miller, you've got Jalen Ramsey, and of course you got Aaron Donald. You still got the likes of Leonard Floyd on that team. I mean, there's so much to that defense. I I think they're gonna step up in the playoffs. I think there's a lot of experience there, and that's gonna be necessary. So I got the Rams winning this game, but let's talk about the Cardinals and see what they could do against them. So with the Cardinals, I think that Kyler Murray has had a rock star year. He's looked a little bit less as the years progressed, but he's still incredible. James Conner has really stepped up on that team. When Chase Edmonds was down, he still looks like he's probably better than Chase Edmonds overall, but they do have a nice 1-2 punch with those two. They do not have DeAndre Hopkins until probably the NFC Championship game if they were to get there, which is a huge blow. I don't think their offense looks the same without him. You still got Christian Kirk, still got AJ Green, still got Rondale Moore. Those three have done very well, but they're no superstars. None of them are that number one wide receiver. That's just AJ Green was at one point in his career. He's not anymore. He's a number two. He's good. Just he's not superstar level anymore. And then you have Zach Ertz, who they went ahead and traded for earlier this year. Very good pickup. And it's really helped them out. And then, of course, on their defense, they've looked pretty good most of the year. They definitely fell a little bit off, but it was kind of that natural, come back down to the median of their expectations. Their defense is going to have to step up and get to Stafford. That is their way to winning this game. I just don't think they're going to do it in this game. I think their last meeting kind of showed that the Rams are the better team when put into the must-need situation, and that's what must-win situation. That's what this is. That's what every playoff game is. The Rams also have more experience. I don't see a world where the Cardinals are gonna be able to upset them. So I got the Rams this time. So then let's talk a little bit about my favorite to win the NFC and my upset pick. Um, my favorite to win the NFC is the Packers. I went with the Titans. I'm gonna go with the Packers. The one seeds both look super strong. Packers are arguably the best team in the league. Um, they've had to deal with the most adversity this year too. I mean, they haven't had David Bakhtiari pretty much ever this year. Um, they are finally getting back Za'Darius Smith probably, and then on top of that, getting back Jair Alexander. All three of those guys are really huge for their team, and they still got Aaron Rodgers, they still got Aaron Jones, still got AJ Dillon, Devontae Adams. You got the other collection of wide receivers in Alan Lazard and MVS, and then Robert Aguero and uh, Mercedes Lewis have looked pretty good still at tight end, just to be the names that have taken over. Um, their offensive line has looked incredible even without Bakhtiari. Kind of a makeshift line. And then you have Rasul Douglas, who's been incredible at corner. Their defense has just really picked up the stones of the fallen. It's crazy how good their defense has been this year. And they're gonna have to be that good still in the playoffs because there's a lot of good offenses, and if you can't have a good defense to follow it, why? What's the point? Um, my upset pick, I'm gonna go with the 49ers. As much as I don't think, I just talked about defense and all this, I think they have the most explosive offense in the NFC. And it's just because they have such a interesting situation with Debo Samuel. How incredible he is and elusive he is. Um, I think that they can look like the team that made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And they can just run it down your throats. That's the one thing that they have going against all these teams is they probably have the best running. And I mean, it's not. It makes sense. That's their way. It's always been their way. They're gonna run it down your throats first and foremost, and then they're gonna pass the ball down your throats. And when you have the threats that they do on that team now, uh, compared to 2 years ago, they wish they would have had these guys on offense. Their defense may not be the same, but they still got Eric Armstead. They still got Nick Bosa on that defense. They can still do it. As someone that really doesn't like the Niners for no goddamn reason, I think that they have a good chance this year of making it to the Super Bowl. So yeah, I look at that. Looks like we're about out of time. See y'all next time.